Okay, in this video we're going to go over JavaScript arrays. The reading assignment is up above. Do some examples and that will be it. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out. We have JavaScript methods. I put under there arrays on the W3 schools, so you can read through some examples here, and then the methods that we'll use are here. Alright, so I'm going to start with make an arrays directory. But to start off with, I'll do the JavaScript console that you can just, if you type node with no program, then we can do some code and run it. So I'll array equals, okay, so if I have a line like creating a variable like this, and if I have square brackets there, then that creates an array. So an array is a data type that has multiple things inside of it, and we've seen one with the process.argv is an array, and we do bracket 2 to get the thing with index 2. So if I do a bracket 2 here, which one will it print? Will it print the 1, the 2, or the 3? Prints the 3. A bracket 0 is the first. A bracket 1 is the second. So you can get the different parts of the array with the index and brackets, and there's always it wasn't paused. Okay, so you can get the length with the a.length there, and now if I do a bracket 1 equals hello. Now if I do a bracket 1, there will be the string hello in there. If I print the whole string, then I see I have a 1, a string hello, and a string 3. Okay, the list of things we're supposed to do, so we have the square brackets to create it, the square brackets to get inside of it, the dot length, and then we have four different functions to be able to use. If I do, say, x var x equals a dot to string. Now if I look at x is a string that was made from taking the a array and just taking the string version of each of them with commas in between. So now if I do type of x is a string. If I do, you can do anything that I can do with strings with x. There's push and pop. So if I do a dot push something, now if I look at a, there's 4 things inside of there. If I do var y equals a dot pop, y is something, and now a is shrunk by 1. One way to add into an array is using the push, and one way to take off of the end of the array is pop. Concat is another one, so let's say that I have another array, I 3.2 true. So there's my array B and my array A. If I say a.concat B, then that would be a new array. So now I have my array A, which is 1, hello, and 3. I have my array B that I created, and now C is both of them put together. Concatenation is putting them together end to end. Okay, so those are the functions that we want to know about. ToString gives you a string version of an array. Push adds to the end of an array. Pop takes off of the end. And concat creates a new array that is putting both arrays together. And if you click on the links, then that'll give you the W3 schools reading. All right, I want to do a few examples just using those items. We'll start with random numbers as an example. So I'm going to, let's see, .exit here, and I'll do random nums.js, and what I'd like to do here is node random nums.js, and let's say 10, and this should print 10 random numbers. 4, 2, 7, 6, 8, 10 random numbers. Okay, so first of all, we're going to get our arguments. So if the length of the argv array is less than 3, then it didn't give us enough arguments. We'll have a message there. Process.exit. So otherwise, we have our var n equals parse int process.argv bracket 2. Okay. So now I want to have a let's see, what do we want our random nums to be between? Let's say between 1 and 100. So var array a, so that's an empty array. And now I want to do so now I want to do a random number and put it into a. So let's say that I have a function called random num, and I'll say that I want to have a random number between let's say this will just return a random number. So I'll do return math.random, which gives me a random number between 0 and 1. I'll multiply that by 100 and round it. Let's just make sure that works. So I have a random function, I don't have any parameters, so when I call it, I have the parenthesis, but I don't have any parameters. Okay, node. Those are some random numbers. So let's say that I want to put the right number of random numbers in there. That would be a for loop. I equals 0, I less than n, I plus plus. And I want to create a random number. Say var x equals random num, and then a dot push x. So I have my array, it starts off empty, I'm putting things into the array, and then afterwards I could console.log a. And if I do, let's just say 2 random numbers, and there's only 2, I could do 100. There's 100. Okay, so if there's that. So there's one example. I have a.push, and if I wanted to print, I could print it like that. I could do a toString, which should put all the commas in. So that doesn't have the square brackets when you do toString. It just gives all the items separated by commas. Okay. Find max, min, and average. I'll keep working in this file here. So I have my, let's put this in function create random array, and I'll have my n come as a parameter. So there's my n, that's how many I want. There's my array, and so now my main program, I can say var r equals create random array n. So now I could do that more than once if I needed to. Alright, there's the code that creates the random array. Now I'd like to do something, function find max min avg of my sum array a. So that would be the goal. Find max min average of array a. So there is my random array. I print it, and I also want to do find max min avg of the array r. Let's just make sure that things are still working. They are. Okay, so now we need an idea. This would be our array. Let me go to two screens. So this would be like r bracket. So r bracket 0 would be 12, r bracket 1 would be 33, r bracket 2, r bracket 29, r bracket 3, all the way up to r bracket 19. So the way that we find, let's just do the minimum, is we're going to have to look at every single item in there. So there's going to be some kind of loop, var I equals 0, I is less than a dot length, I plus plus. So now we want to look at a bracket I and see if it looks like the smallest. And the way we'll do that is we'll keep track of smallest index of smallest. So what I'm going to do is this would be the index of smallest seen so far. And I'll start that at 0, and then I will look at all the rest. So what I would like to say is the smallest I've seen so far, at the beginning it would be 12. Then I'm going to look at 33. Is that smaller than 12? No. So I want to do a test here if a bracket I is less than a bracket index of smallest. So I go along, eventually it would be when I get to I equals 1, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I find one that's smaller than what I've seen before, I want to save it. Okay, so I go through 1, 2, 3 all the way up to the end, and if I ever see something that's smaller than what I've seen before, I save the new index. When I get to the end of the loop, now index of smallest as index for smallest item in the array. And I could print the min. So let's see. There's the array, and it has the minimum as 0, and there is a 0. Let's run it again. This time there was a 16. There's the 16 right there, and that is the smallest. Okay, so you probably want to pause and just kind of look at this for a second. That's the whole program. Remember, we come in at the top, we did our arguments up there. N is going to be 20. These are some functions, and then it starts running down here. First we create the array. So that is a function. This is going to be 20 when I ran it. That goes into here. So we have an empty array for 20 times we create a random number. This function creates a random number between 0 and 100. That gets put on the end of the array. After the loop, there will be 20 things in the array. This gets returned. So that is the value of this function right here is the array that has 20 items in it. That's going to be R in the main part of the program. This prints the array, and then we do our find max min average R. So this will be the array of 20 numbers. That gets copied in here to this A. When we do A inside of here, that's got copied in from this R, so that's our 20 numbers. Index of smallest is the smallest that we've seen so far as we look through the array. We go from 1 up to the end, and if we ever see something that's smaller than what we were keeping track of before, we save it. So now that if this I is an index for something smaller than the one that we were saving before, now the smallest that we've seen so far is I. After the loop, we've looked through the whole thing and we've got the smallest. Question: what would we do now if we were to find the largest? So you could pause and think, what has to happen if we want to also find the largest? What we do is we do the same type of thing, but now we want to keep track of also the largest. So in here, we leave this stuff with the smallest alone. We'll still do that. But now if A bracket I is bigger than the index of the largest, then we save that. We do the same thing, but just with a greater than, and we're doing both of them inside the loop. We're checking to see if this one is smaller than the smallest we've seen. We're checking to see if this one is larger than the largest one we've seen. So now we have, let's see, 7's the smallest and 99 was the largest. So for both the smallest and the largest, we start off just remembering the first item, 66. Before we look at anything else, that's the smallest and the largest we've seen so far. We go in the loop. When I is 1, we're looking at 54. That is smaller than the smallest one we've seen so far, so this if statement would happen, and now we save that index 1 is the smallest we've seen so far. We go to index 2 when I is 2. That's smaller than the smallest we've seen so far, so we would save index of smallest would be 2. When we get up to 69, that would be I equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. When we get up to I equals 4, that's larger than the largest we saw so far. The largest was still at I equal 0. So after I is 4, then largest index of largest would become 4. We go through the whole thing like that. Alright, so you probably want to take a pause and just kind of look at that for a minute. Now we want to do the average as well. So for the average, we need the total. We start a total at 0, and we add or let's see, we start at A bracket 0. So we just want to add up all the items in the list. So we have A bracket 0, I goes from 1 to the end here, so we add on A bracket I each time. And then the average is just the total so it's going to be the total divided by how many there were. That was A dot length. And what do you think the average should be, generally? We run this a bunch of times. The average is generally going to be around 50 because we're taking random numbers between 0 and 100. Okay, let's check how we were. We have random numbers. We have find min max average We could have also done a chat program, but I think we've done long enough here. So the things you need to remember if you want to create an array, that's with the square brackets, and we could create it with some items in there originally. This is how you create a initially empty array. One way to put something in is with .push. Once you have some stuff in there, the array.length is how many are in there, and you access each one with bracket and then which one you want. It starts at 0. You can have a variable in there as long as the value of the variable is less than the length. And we saw concat was another name of the function that we can use to create a new array that combines two of them. All right, and I think that will be it.